So, got a big block together. I had to spend a few hours cleaning. It was quite dirty. The other person that had this apart just kind of did whatever flat rate mechanic usually does. Not always, but on old greasy stuff, old greasy engines, usually you clean them best you can, then it end up with a bunch of stuff in there. But we spent time to clean it all out. Got it real nice. Got some Lucas in there for when I made adjustments just to help things. Just because I didn't want to do a full disassembly. But I ended up finding, if you can see right here, I ended up finding 5 bent push rods. These 4 top sides. Which is your intake valve here, intake valve, intake valve, intake valve, and then an exhaust back here. This guy. So, I ended up taking. So this motor over here, you can easily tell this thing doesn't have a lot, can't have a lot of miles on it. I mean, there's rust in there, but look at the rocker arm assemblies. They're like new. So I ended up pulling those off. The lock nuts never even been messed with. You can tell because they're still pretty hard to turn when you put them back on for the second time. So, what I was gonna go over today, I just wanted to kind of run over that. Your disassembly is as important as your assembly sometimes. So, as I was assembling, I just gave these guys an eyeball as I was adjusting them to see the push rod because I had one that was adjusting funny. Um, so I got to looking and I found one with a scratched rocker tip and a bent arm. So I found just on this side, these ones are all good. So checked all those ones, good to go. More than likely, it's from high RPMs. At some point in its life, they weren't tweaked to where you could see them really by looking at them. The only way I knew is because I could see an offset when I was spinning them, and it was just minute. We're talking thousands. So anyway, I stole the parts out of the other engine, and which is now that I'm looking at it, I'm definitely gonna pull it apart to see, even if the block's cracked, the all the rotating assembly, if it doesn't have low miles, because these motors are designed to go, 2, 3, 400,000 miles. That rotating assembly might be worth it to just keep around. Just because I could swap in another block and not have to have no machining done and all that. So, what I was gonna go over today. So, timing these things out. Now, obviously, you can watch your intake valves. You know what's going on because as you rotate it, you watch your intake valve. So, we're gonna look here. So number 1 intake valve, right? So we'll watch that open. You know you're coming up to 1, right? And any old mechanic tell you to put your finger on the spark plug see when it goes to push out because you're rising to top dead center. So once this opens and closes, then you know you're rising. You'll see that line approach your mark. Um, Obviously we have our timing marks marked out, so you'll watch that happen. But then we're gonna get into our what we do for valve adjustment. Now, if you go through the book, you can make all the valve adjustments in 2 runs as long as you're on the flat sides of the cam, and that works. If we're doing a race engine, we want to be real precise. Now, I got a mark there for top dead center, and then I have another mark here for reference, right? So I know that that's top dead center mark. So what you do here is you can make one of these out of a spark plug, right? So I made an example here, somewhere. Anyway, you can see right here that you can put that right there. You see that? So that's your spark plug. So if you knock a spark plug out and drill it out, you can take a bolt and just thread it in. It might take you a few minutes, but you don't have to pay whatever this was a long time ago. I bought a long time ago. So anyway, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this. You're gonna take your number 1 plug out, and you're gonna put this in there. All right. Especially sometimes you see, there's different motors where they'll have this in a different spot, and then the marker will be here because they got swapped at some point and nothing lines up. So, and you can do it. So, how do you timing light it out if you can't do it by ear? So then you get one of these guys, and I use these sometimes when I'm using diagnostic troubles, and I think I have a timing issue. I'll use one of these in correlation because I know where it's at for sure, 100%. There's no if, ands, or doubt about it. And that way, so what happens is you're going to screw this into the head, and then you're going to screw this in. Mind you, you screw that in So this end goes in like so. And what you're going to do is you're going to rotate this flywheel around and it's going to stop. You got to be real gentle. Usually if you have a buddy or somebody that can help you watch, but you can do it here and watch this mark coming and make sure you're coming to top dead center. When it's coming, just slow down a little bit, and that way you don't slam the piston into this, because you will dent it, especially if you have, that's grade 8. So recommend using a softer bolt, that way you're not going to worry about it. So anyway, when it touches this, you'll come back here, you'll make a mark, right? And then you'll spin the motor over the opposite way. Now, some motors you're not going to be able to do this with because there's certain motors you can, but some don't. Motors don't like to be turned the opposite direction that they're supposed to be spinning. So old V8s don't really care. So spin it the opposite direction, and then what will happen is your mark will be coming in from the opposite side, and it will stop before you make it to top dead center, and that includes both ways, right? So you end up with your marker stop here, and then your marker stop like here, and then you come back. You can make a mark on the balancer and do it that way, but the most accurate way would be to have something that has got a bigger display, so it exaggerates how, if you made a mark here, you can't tell. The degrees are so close together on this. Unless you have a suite, we're doing this backyard style. So you come back over here, you make a mark. And then each time you roll the motor over, you end up with 2 marks, right? So then you end up with how many teeth apart. Now, sometimes you'll end up way over here and way over here. And if that's the case, then you have to screw this in just a little bit more. And be gentle about it. Once you get to a point, a few threads go a long ways. But you end up with 2 marks. And then what you do is, if you can count the teeth in between, you end up with a middle mark if you end up with odd teeth numbers, right? Or just keep going in. I get them into where I have about 5 teeth. And then the center marker right there is it. And then make a mark. That is top dead center on 1. 100%, because mechanically it can't lie. And then if you don't have a degreeing wheel, or whatever you want to call it, timing wheel, I don't know what they're called. I just know old school methods the way I was taught. So then we have, you have 2 Chevy files, a 153 and a 168, whatever. So you get your amount of teeth per flywheel, and then you do the division, right? So this is where we're going to learn our next step. This part's important. So based on a 4-stroke engine and a crankshaft revolutions per stroke. So when you see your RPMs are generally based off the amount of times your camshaft spins. So your crank is actually spinning twice as fast, because you have to complete 2 complete revolutions of that crank for 1 revolution of that camshaft, which is in the middle. So when you see 2,000 RPM, your crank is actually going 4,000 RPM, because 1 revolution is counted in timing on just 1 revolution of the cam. So when we do this, the point of the matter is what happens is if this is a V8 engine, you're going to have, if you have to complete one revolution of a 4-stroke engine, this has to turn twice. You're going to have a piston, your number 1 piston, at top dead center, and 1